Hey there summoners, as promised I'm back with a full list of changes coming up next patch. Welcome to our upcoming changes 12.9 edition. My name is Nathan Ng and I'll be your host, giving you an update on what to expect next patch. We'll cover every single champion change and more. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content like this, and let's get started. To begin the video, let's start with the new champion skins. We all love skins, and coming soon is a drop that we see every year. To commemorate EDG's 2021 victory at Worlds, 5 custom skins will be available soon. EDG Aphelios, Graves, Viego, Yuumi, and Zoe are all champions that will be receiving them. They look amazing, just give them a look, especially if you're a fan of LPL. Aside from those, the new set of High Noon skins are on their way as well. High Noon Katarina, Leona, Mordekaiser, Talon Prestige, and Varus will be in the shop soon. That wraps up the skins, so let's move on to the champion balance next. One big complaint that players had is the power of Hullbreaker. Introduced in Season 11 as a dedicated split-pushing item, it's finally receiving a substantial nerf. While it was nerfed earlier in the season, the changes targeted range champions who were able to get far too much value out of it. This time, it's receiving a universal nerf that will objectively make the item weaker when rushed. Its bonus stats are being reduced early, and the scaling model changed to increase towards later levels, and bonus tower damage will only apply via attacks. This is already going to change the meta up substantially. Patch 12.10 is when we can expect even more game-breaking changes, and if you want to stay on top of the meta, make sure you hit up a coach at ProGuides.com. Our expert staff aren't only great teachers, but great players as well. Whether you want help improving your macro or to master a specific champion, there's a coach for you. With the system changes covered, let's talk about the champion balance next. While the number of changes in this patch are small, it's safe to say that they're quite impactful. We'll begin with the top lane change and talk about Sion. Sion has seen massive increases in his play rates as of late. Popularized by the streamer, The Boss, the iconic Instinct Sion build has emerged amidst all the chaos. One major issue with the build is that it encourages less experienced players to quite literally run it down. Unfortunately, not everybody is able to use it as effectively, and thus lowers the quality of many games. One major strength of this build is the immense side lane pressure that you're able to create with it. It seems like Riot is fine with the state of tank Sion, so we're seeing a nerf that specifically targets the unorthodox playstyle. Next patch, the passive damage to turrets will be reduced greatly to combat this strategy. Like I mentioned earlier, Hullbreaker was also nerfed, meaning that players who opt into a tank hybrid build are also going to come out weaker than before. Renekton is also due some changes. His HP and AD growth are going to be increased, while his W will be adjusted to be weaker early on and stronger later. Finally, his ultimate will also receive a buff. That's it for the top lane, so let's talk about the jungle next. The first jungle change is for Rengar. Given his upper 52% win rate in high elo, the nerf hammer was certainly coming his way eventually. In elite brackets, this win rate was even going to be higher, going as high as 54 or even 55% depending on the data that you're analyzing. It goes without saying that Rengar is in a good spot right now, a little too good actually. Rengar received several changes in patch 12.6 that ended up heavily buffing him. While this damage to structures was reduced the following patch, it's no surprise that it was enough to keep him down. After giving him some time to thrive, Rengar is receiving some nerfs to balance out the excessive strength that he received. His bonus W damage to monsters will be decreased slightly. Master Yi is another destructive jungler who's getting nerfed next patch. In this case, he's a devilish force in low to mid elo. However, his 50% win rate in high elo is still rather impressive since he's typically perceived as a noob stomper. Moving forward, his ultimate bonus attack speed at later levels is being cut down significantly. One more high elo demon up for a nerf is none other than Nidalee. Riot has always had to be careful with any buffs that they give her for this exact reason. Currently holding a 53% win rate in elite play, Riot has had her in the priority list for next patch. Nidalee's base health will be reduced, giving the enemy junglers more opportunity to fight her early on. With those nerfs out of the way, let's talk about the upcoming jungle buff. Hecarim is heavily struggling right now with a low 46% win rate in high elo. It's slightly lower overall, but at the end of the day, it's safe to conclude that he's pretty weak right now. To help him find a place in the game again, he's up for some major buffs. First, his Q's to AD ratio is going up, and second, his W's cooldown is being cut down significantly. In line with Riot's plans to cut down burst damage, he's instead receiving more durability and scaling suited for extended teamfights. One of 12.10's biggest change is a mid-scope update for Olaf. He either goes crazy and wins every single fight, or who is too weak and ends up being a risky pick who usually just doesn't pay off. In this update, he's having his power shifted around to better flesh out his identity, while also applying some changes to make him more manageable. The biggest adjustment that he's receiving is his ultimate's duration, which can be extended indefinitely. In addition to this, his W will be granting a shield, but at the cost of some of his jungle clear speed and early combat power. That wraps up the jungle changes, so let's talk about the mid laners next. In the mid lane, we'll start off with the nerf for Ahri. She's risen to the top in terms of popularity, and for good reason. Ahri has a lot going on for her with her solid wave clear, sustain, crowd control, and mobility. Ultimately, she doesn't have any particular weaknesses to exploit, while she's able to bully the squishier and mobile enemies. Ahri just sits short of a 52% win rate in high elo, but also holds the highest play rate amongst the highest ban rate near 20%. The player base has made it clear that they believe that she is OP. With that being said, she's receiving nerfs but not directly to her damage. Instead, her E and R's cooldown are going to be increased to take away a little bit of her playmaking power. Before moving forward, let me ask you our question of the day. Do you think League needs more easy champions? Personally, I do. Starting League in Season 12 is rough. You have to overcome so many hurdles just to be competent. The fact that a lot of strong champions are more complex doesn't really help. Let me know the answers in the comments down below, and let's continue on with the video. While this was listed as an adjustment, we have another mid lane nerf, this time for Pyke. This change mainly affects mid lane Pyke as he currently holds a 53% win rate. It's much higher than his support win rate, so I'm glad that Riot decided not to hit him with an overall nerf, but will instead make adjustments to target what they believe is problematic. Next patch, Pyke will no longer receive multiple Yorick cut from his ultimate, limiting his excessive gold generation. Finally, we'll talk about the second mid-scope update, which is for Taliyah. Big news for mid laners, she's being brought back from the jungle. However, it sounds like she's certainly going to remain a viable jungler even after these changes. The main focus of Taliyah's adjustments are to take away her problematic burst damage and instead give her strength elsewhere. I would say they've done just that. Taliyah lost a lot of damage in plenty of places, but it has much more impactful utility. Her W no longer deals damage, but will now be able to be on a shorter cooldown and also activate slightly faster. Her E will stun enemies who try to dash through, making it a much more effective tool to control space or stop enemy divers. A significant change is to her Q, which will deal AoE damage and also consume more to ground to fire a powerful boulder. That's it for the mid lane, so let's talk about the bot laners next. There aren't very many bot lane changes to cover, so let's talk about Varus. He's been underperforming at the moment, and Riot is once again buffing him. Lethality Varus has always been a major issue in the past. As a result, he's having his passive attack speed bonus as well as his W's on hit damage increased. That's it for the bot lane build, so let's conclude with the supports. Since her release, Renata Glass has been a prominent support champion. She deals solid damage, but also provides invaluable utility for her team. I'd argue that some of it is game breaking. She has the power to potentially revive a teammate with a basic ability, and is the only champion in the game who can turn enemy players against their own teammates. That being said, she's a versatile pick that gives any team the aggressive edge that they need to snowball and dominate once ahead. To even the playing field, she's having her armor as well as her passive damage reduced slightly. This should give players more opportunities to fight her in the early game and try to pick up leads. Next, we have buffs starting with Braum. Consistently underperforming, Riot is moving forward with some generous buffs for our friend. First, his passive's late game cooldown is going to be reduced significantly. This will certainly make him a much stronger threat in the late game teamfights, as he'll be able to help his teammates aggressively lock down enemies or instead impede enemy divers' attempts at taking out his carries. Another huge buff is his E's damage reduction at all ranks. It's an especially huge buff at max rank, and Braum will end up as a significantly stronger frontliner for his team. The support meta has been rapidly shifting over the course of the season. Unfortunately for Thresh, that hasn't been a good thing for him. He's currently one of the worst performing supports in the game, mostly because so many other champions have been directly or indirectly buffed. Before his nerfs, Thresh's early game proved to be oppressive. A single hook is all it took to end the laning phase. He's been nerfed several times as he's able to provide significant utility at all stages of the game. As a strong early game has been problematic in the past, Riot is instead going to be buffing up his scaling. His AP, armor, as well as his lantern shield scaling per soul are all going up. They'll certainly make a difference in longer games, but the buffs also ensure that Thresh players are rewarded harder when they manage to win the laning phase. With all that being said, we've concluded our upcoming changes for patch 12.9. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and feel free to let me know what you guys thought about it. Also, feel free to join our Discord community. We'd love to have you guys there, and you can find a link for it in the description. That'll be it for the video, and as usual, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.